On the evening of the 8th of December 2001, Michael Peterson is celebrating. He's a New York Times best-selling author, and a Hollywood film company is interested in making a film based on one of his novels. He decides to rent a movie so that he can have a relaxing evening drinking wine at home with his wife Kathleen in Durham, North Carolina. She's a high-flying business executive, really well-liked, and basically everyone in the community knows her. Together they share 5 children in what they call their perfect blended family. Just after 11 p.m, Kathleen returns a call from a work colleague. The next 3.5 hours are a mystery.
I'm Meggie Foster, and I make models of crime scenes to work out what really happened.
Michael claims that the two of them were sitting by the pool talking. Kathleen then goes inside to bed between 1:45 and 2 a.m. After smoking his pipe, he comes into the house 45 minutes later and finds Kathleen's body at the bottom of the staircase and calls 911. Her entire body is covered in drying blood. Her head is facing upwards with horrendous wounds. There's blood all over the stairs and even high up on the walls. First responders say they have never seen so much blood from a simple fall. Michael is arrested and his trial begins. His lawyers come up with their version of events. On that night, Kathleen had been drinking and had taken Valium for stress. As she tries to walk up the stairs, she falls back and hits her head on the doorframe, causing gashes to her head. She then tries to stand up, but still dazed from the knock to her head, she slips due to the blood on the floor. Her head hits the stairs, causing more fatal injuries. The defense relies on forensic and scientific experts. One claims that the blood splatter on the walls could have come from Kathleen coughing and that there was too much blood for a beating. The prosecution, however, argues Kathleen's injuries aren't consistent with a fall. She has severe cuts to the back of her head, bruises on her arms, and let's not forget the sheer volume of blood. Kathleen must have been beaten to death by someone, and with something. But why? The prosecution explores Michael's motives. First of all, the Petersons were in a lot of debt. They had $143,000 in credit card debts alone. And it didn't help that they lived in a fancy mansion that was expensive to maintain. Kathleen's life insurance and back pay would provide a significant sum of money, enough to fund Michael's lavish lifestyle. It doesn't end there though. Police find a large amount of gay porn on his computer. Michael admits that he's actually bisexual, a secret he's kept from his family, and he had even attempted to meet a male escort. Kathleen had left her ex-husband due to his infidelity. To her, marriage vows were sacred. There was no way she would have put up with Michael's cheating. For the prosecution, these are clear motives. This is how they see the events of that night. Kathleen goes into Michael's study to send an email, but finds the porn on his computer. She's shocked, and when she confronts him, he snaps. He attacks her with a blunt object. She falls bleeding. When she tries to get up again, he hits her. Forensic expert Dwayne Deaver testifies that blood splatter on the walls and on the clothing worn by Michael are consistent with a blunt force attack. To him, it looks like Michael stood over Kathleen and beat her. After killing Kathleen, Michael attempts to clean himself up. He even stages some wine glasses to give the impression she'd been drinking. But blood alcohol tests reveal she wasn't even over the drink drive limit for North Carolina. I find it weird that she was sober enough to drive, but Michael insisted she drank too much. It doesn't add up to me. Then we have the neurological examination, which indicates her brain was starved of oxygen. This basically means Kathleen had taken around 2 to 4 hours to die. More than enough time for Michael Peterson to get help. So Michael kills her and leaves her body at the bottom of the stairs, making it look like she had fallen. Why? Well, as an author, we can assume Michael knows how to make up a good story, and a convincing one at that. This is when something pretty crazy is revealed by the media. Turns out that Michael Peterson may have gotten away with the same crime before. In 1985, a teacher called Elizabeth Ratcliffe was found dead at the bottom of the stairs in a house in Germany. Her blood covered the walls. She had injuries to her head. Michael Peterson was the last person to ever see her alive. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Elizabeth and her late husband George had become close friends with Michael and his first wife whilst living in Germany. Despite her injuries, the authorities at the time concluded Elizabeth had died from a brain hemorrhage and the case was closed. Michael even took custody of her 2 daughters and received all the money from her estate. When Elizabeth's body was exhumed in 2002, pathologists discovered injuries suggesting she too had died from blunt force trauma to the skull. This is wild, and this is why I found Michael Peterson so incredibly suspicious. 2 women are found dead in the exact same way, and Michael Peterson is present at both events. It's no surprise that Michael is found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to a life in prison without parole. He tries and fails to appeal his verdict. He's seemingly out of options. We now fast forward to 2011, and the police have fired their blood splatter analyst Dwayne Deaver. Deaver played a critical role in the trial by saying that Kathleen had been attacked. But it turns out that he lied about his experience and provided falsified results crucial to the case. A retrial looks imminent, but in 2017 it was reported that Michael had entered what's known as the Alford plea. This is where you state your innocence, but you agree that there is enough evidence to prove that it was you who committed the crime. The plea was for voluntary manslaughter, and Michael was sentenced to 7 years. But as he had already served 8 years in prison, he was released. Today, Michael Peterson continues to protest his innocence, even appearing on TV. Like so many of these cases, we'll never know the exact truth. There are only 2 people who really know what happened: Kathleen and her husband, Michael Peterson. Imagine being shot by your boyfriend on Valentine's Day. And on top of that, your boyfriend is a Paralympic champion, a hero of South Africa, the world-famous Blade Runner.
I'm Meggie Foster, and I make models of crime scenes to work out what really happened.
This is the case of Reeva Steenkamp, who died on the 14th of February 2013 after her boyfriend Oscar Pistorius shot her. Chances are you've already heard of this case. I've always been fascinated by it. I remember watching Pistorius at the 2012 Olympics, and I was completely shocked when I found out what happened. Pistorius has always admitted to firing the fatal shots that killed Reeva, but claimed he mistook her for an intruder. With only circumstantial evidence, and the sole surviving witness being Pistorius himself, how do we know if he's telling the truth? On the 13th of February 2013, Reeva and Pistorius have dinner together at around 7 p.m. in Pistorius' fancy home in the expensive Silverwoods estate in Pretoria. They've been dating for a few months now and are quite a famous celebrity couple. Pistorius is widely loved in his home country because of his success as a Paralympian, but Reeva is also pretty well known. She is a model and a law graduate who has won over the hearts of South Africans with her various reality TV appearances. That day, she has written Pistorius a Valentine's Day card that contained the heartfelt words, "I think today is a good day to tell you that I love you." I just find that so heartbreaking. It starts out as a normal evening. After the 2 of them have dinner, they both head to bed at around 8 p.m. It's a hot and humid evening, so Pistorius has left the balcony doors open in the bedroom and has 2 fans placed by the doors. At around 10 p.m, they both drift off to sleep. He sleeps on the left side of the bed and Reeva's on the right. Pistorius says that he wakes up sometime after 2 a.m. because he can't sleep. Reeva is also awake and asks him, "You can't sleep, Baba?" Everything is pretty normal at this point. Pistorius climbs out of the bed without his prosthetic legs on and walks over to the balcony to move the fans inside. At this moment, Pistorius says he hears a noise coming from the inside of the house and starts to get scared. Even though he lives in a fancy housing complex with fences, CCTV and security guards, he's experienced the very real threat of crime in South Africa. So fearful is Pistorius that he sleeps with a gun under his bed and a cricket bat near the door of the bedroom. Pistorius says he feels very vulnerable without his prosthetic legs, so he immediately goes into panic mode. He reaches under his bed and pulls out a 9mm pistol. It sounds like the noise is coming from the bathroom, so he makes his way down the corridor and says he shouts to Reeva to call the police. Even though she doesn't answer, he keeps moving towards the toilet door. His next movements all happen very quickly. When another noise comes from inside the toilet, Pistorius shoots 4 times at the toilet door, although he has no idea who's behind it. Or does he? Pistorius says then he goes back to the bedroom to check on Reeva. He goes to feel for her on the bed, but as we all know, she isn't there. Pistorius claims this is his moment of realization. Grabbing his cricket bat, he then goes back to the bathroom and swings the bat at the toilet door. It takes 3 blows for him to break the door and force it open. What's behind the door is devastating. Reeva is slumped over, helpless and bleeding. It is already too late for her. There was never an intruder in the bathroom, it was just Reeva moving around in her own boyfriend's house. She's been hit by the bullets in her hip and arm, and one bullet has even gone through her arm and into her skull. This suggests that she tried to protect herself by shielding her head with her hands. By this time, it's around 3 a.m. Weirdly, he calls the estate's manager first and then the emergency services. But by the time the police and paramedics arrive, there is no hope for her, and Pistorius is told that she is dead. Pistorius is at the height of his fame, so the story makes headlines all over the world. This only escalates when the trial starts on the 3rd of March 2014. The question is, did Pistorius mean to kill Reeva, or did he really think there was an intruder in his house? His testimony lays out the events of that night pretty convincingly, and it also helps his case that he's such a well-respected and much-loved athlete. But there are revelations which tell a very different story. He is a self-described adrenaline junkie, and turns out he loves guns and is quite reckless with them. He shot a gun out of the open sunroof of his car, and just a few weeks before Reeva was killed, he accidentally fired a friend's gun inside a packed restaurant. But Pistorius' story gets even more suspicious. In court, his ex-girlfriend takes to the stand and testifies that he was emotionally abusive, jealous, and controlling. But what's even scarier is that he would wave his gun around dangerously. Then there's a WhatsApp message Reeva sent to Pistorius less than a month before she died. She says she is unhappy with how jealous and controlling Pistorius gets and writes, "I'm scared of you sometimes, and how you snap at me and how you react to me." It's worrying how scared she was of her own boyfriend. And then there's Pistorius' neighbours who are called in as witnesses. Pistorius said that he and Reeva were both asleep until he woke up after 2 a.m. But there are neighbours who say that they heard arguing before 2 a.m. Another says they heard a woman scream and then they heard the gunshots. So what were the screams the neighbours heard that night? What's also quite strange is that 4 phones belonging to the couple are found in the bathroom by the police. It suggests Reeva had taken the phone in with her because she thought she was in trouble or was trying to get help. Despite all of this, Pistorius isn't found guilty of murder. The text message and witnesses who heard screams are inconsistent and in no way prove anything beyond reasonable doubt. On the 11th of September 2014, Judge Masipa finds him guilty of culpable homicide, saying he acted rashly, but she doesn't think he intended to kill Reeva. He is initially sentenced to 5 years in prison, but after a series of appeals, Pistorius is finally convicted of murder and his sentence increases to 15 years. It's a tricky case to get your head around. Did Pistorius know that it was Reeva in the bathroom? Did an argument escalate to murder? Or did he really believe that there was an intruder? The only person who knows the truth is Pistorius. Do you believe him? It's May 1989 in Denver, Colorado, and a local resident sits down to watch the hottest new TV show called America's Most Wanted, where investigators ask for the public's help to catch dangerous criminals. All of a sudden, she sees a reconstructed face of a man she recognizes. The show is telling the story of John List, a murderer who's been on the run for over 18 years, but she knows him as Robert P. Clark, a pleasant, quiet family man and thoughtful neighbor. Can you imagine that? Watching a crime TV show and seeing your neighbour's face staring back at you from the TV screen. 18 years earlier, John List murdered his entire family and ran away, taking on a new identity and living quietly beyond the reach of the law for nearly 2 decades. But why did List kill his entire family? And how had he managed to escape justice for such a long time?
I'm Meggie Foster, and I make models of crime scenes to work out what really happened.
Let me take you back to Tuesday the 9th of November 1971. The day starts like any other day for the List family, as the children head off to school after breakfast. For anyone who knows him, John List seems like a respectable man. He is a war veteran, a Sunday school teacher, and has a good job at a bank in Jersey City. His family live in a lavish mansion. They appear to be living the American dream. But it's all a lie. What his family doesn't know is that John has lost his job. The family debts are piling up. He was secretly stealing from his own mother to pay the bills. The last thing List wants is for his family to find out that he failed them. He has a choice. confess to his family about his financial problems and get help, or save himself humiliation and shame of letting them down? He decides to kill his entire family. I know, it's pretty drastic if you ask me. List plans out every detail of the murder. He sends notes to his children's schools, telling them that they would be away for a month visiting their grandma. He also stops all deliveries to his home. The family is known to be reclusive, so luckily for List, no one will be suspicious. With his children at school, List sets his plan into motion. He arms himself with 2 guns. One is a semi-automatic pistol, and the other is his father's revolver. As his wife finishes up in the kitchen, he places a gun to the back of her head and shoots her. He then goes upstairs to his mother's room and shoots her too. List then waits for his children to come back from school. The first home is his daughter, Patricia. As she walks into the house and closes the door, he shoots her at close range. His youngest son, Frederick, is next to arrive home, and as soon as he's inside, List shoots him. At this point, List casually makes himself lunch in the same kitchen where he's just murdered his wife. He changes his clothes and drives to the bank to close the family bank accounts. He then goes to the children's school and stands on the sidelines and watches his son play football. How disturbing is that? List and his son get back to the house. However, John Jr. fights back and the 2 of them struggle. It takes List 10 shots to kill him. List then drags the bodies of his wife and 3 kids into the ballroom of his mansion home. I know, this house even has its own ballroom. He puts them on sleeping bags and covers the faces of his wife and John Jr. He tries to clean the crime scene, wiping away the bloodstains of his entire family. What he does next is really strange. He removes his face from every single family photograph in the house. He then turns on all the lights and puts on a religious radio station. Once he's finished, he runs away. The house lies empty for a whole month. But the neighbours start to wonder, why are the lights in the house always on? Why does nobody ever enter or leave the house? Where is the List family? Finally, the police are called to the house, but no one answers the door. So they go inside, which is when they discovered the bodies of the List family. This starts a huge nationwide manhunt. His car was abandoned at JFK Airport, but there's no record of him taking a flight. With the police already losing a month of investigation time, List has disappeared. The house is abandoned and becomes known as the Murder House. I know, I wouldn't want to move in there. Suddenly, in 1972, a huge fire destroys the mansion. Police suspect arson, but no one is charged. During this time, John List has taken a train to Denver and he took an accounting job. He also changed his name to Robert Peter Clark. Bob, as List is now known, joins a church and becomes quite popular in the community. At a local church meeting, he meets Dolores Miller and the 2 of them end up getting married in 1985. No one knew that Bob was actually a twisted murderer. Almost 2 decades later, in 1989, America's Most Wanted is on the TV, and a local resident gets the shock of her life. She is horrified to recognise the face broadcasted on national TV. A bust of List's face has been recreated and she recognises his glasses and receding hairline. Can you imagine the shock? The Bob Clark she knows is a polite churchgoer, not a murderer with a secret identity. She immediately calls the police. Bob is arrested in Virginia, but protests it's a case of mistaken identity. Dolores stands by his side. It is completely crazy to her that her husband could be mistaken for a murderer. List can't keep up the lie for long though. In February 1990, he finally confesses that he is John List. The trial begins and his defense team argue that he was suffering from PTSD after his service in the army, and he murdered his family because of his mental state. The judge and jury reject this. Nothing could be bad enough to kill all 5 members of your family. List is convicted of 5 counts of first-degree murder, one for every member of his family that he murdered 19 years earlier. He died in prison in 2008 at the age of 82. The John List case makes you think, can you ever really know what secrets a person can keep? They may seem like a loving person, a kind, church-going pillar of the community, someone completely ordinary. But behind closed doors, they hide the deepest and darkest of secrets.
Why
Why do we always end up giving glamorous nicknames to murderers? Ones that are so memorable and catchy that we remember them way after their victims have been forgotten. Like Jack the Ripper, the Yorkshire Ripper, the Suffolk Strangler, the Torso Killer. In 2002, on a council estate in the heart of Camden, North London, a man called Anthony Hardy committed murder not once, not twice, but 3 times. He's otherwise known as the Camden Ripper.
I'm Meggie Foster, and I make models of crime scenes to work out what really happened.
It all starts in January of 2002. Police receive a call from a local resident that their neighbour Anthony Hardy has damaged their property. Police go to Hardy's flat. An argument between neighbours is something they get called for a lot, so this should be easy, right? On entering his flat, police notice the bedroom is locked. Hardy tells them it's his lodger's room and that he doesn't have a key. When they arrest Hardy, a policeman hands him his jacket and they can feel something hiding in the lining. It's a key. Police open the bedroom door and what they find is truly shocking. Inside the bedroom, officers discover a dead woman lying on the bed. She's naked, has cuts and bruises, and a towel covers her face. At this point, the police have no idea how long she's lain there for. Investigation of the bedroom finds smudges of blood on one of the walls and on the pillows. The woman is identified as 38-year-old sex worker Sally White. The evidence seemingly points to murder. Hardy refuses to cooperate, but it doesn't matter. Surely once the post-mortem results come through, it's case closed. But the pathologist's results are completely unexpected. Sally wasn't murdered, but instead died of a heart attack. Incredibly, the Crown Prosecution Service decide there isn't enough evidence to convict Hardy of murder. Instead, he pleads guilty to criminal damage. It's crazy to me that it seemed so obvious he murdered this poor woman, yet he's only charged for criminal damage. Whilst in custody, Hardy is detained under the Mental Health Act and remains in hospital for almost 11 months. It seems to have a positive effect. In November, doctors decide Hardy is mentally stable and he's released. Hardy is now a free man. It's now the 30th of December 2002 and the new year is approaching. Around a Camden council estate, a homeless man is searching through communal bins. As he digs through the rubbish, he finds something completely horrifying. One of the bin bags contains human calf muscles. In shock, he reports his findings to the police and they quickly arrive on the scene. Searchers of the communal bins uncover 10 bags of dismembered body parts, including a human torso. 10 bags! A serial killer is at large. Investigators begin door-to-door inquiries. Neighbours are asked if they've seen anything suspicious. One name is mentioned over and over again. CCTV reveals a mysterious man dressed in a long black coat and a baseball cap, dropping bin bags in both communal bins. The man matches the description. It's Anthony Hardy. The police have their evidence and all they have to do is arrest Hardy and question him. But the situation is about to get a lot trickier. When investigators arrive at Hardy's flat, they discover that the front door is unlocked. Entering his creepy flat once again, Hardy is nowhere to be found. The first thing the police notice is the awful smell. One police officer said it even smelled like a mortuary. It fills them with dread. As they approach Hardy's bedroom, the mortuary smell becomes even worse. The room is practically empty. There are no carpets on the floor anymore, and some of the furniture is missing. But in the middle of the room is a bin bag with a saw and various tools placed upon it. When officers open the bag, they discover a decapitated human torso. This is just 11 months after the body of Sally White had been found in the exact same bedroom. Police also find a roll of bin liners casually left on the desk in the bedroom. Yep, you can probably guess what this means. Experts confirm that the bags found in the communal bins were from this roll. A loyalty card and CCTV footage confirm Hardy had purchased them. What's also weird is if Hardy had killed and dismembered the bodies in his flat, why weren't there blood and guts everywhere? Experts use this chemical called luminol, which reacts with blood and turns a luminescent blue. You can probably imagine how Hardy's flat was looking after this. Both the bathroom and the bedroom were glowing bright blue. Police could now see with their own eyes that Hardy was responsible for these disgusting crimes and how he had tried to clean them up. With only parts of the victims' bodies remaining, it's really tough for police to make any kind of identification. What helps them is actually surgical implants found in the torso from Hardy's bedroom. Their unique reference number identifies the victim as Elizabeth Vallard. More DNA testing identifies the body parts found in the communal bins as Bridget McLennan. With this information, they finally look back at the Sally White case. Did she really die from natural causes? With the state she was found in Hardy's flat, covered in cuts and bruises, it didn't seem very likely. All 3 women were sex workers. Hardy had lured them into his flat with horrific consequences. It's so sad because this case just shows how sex workers are so often such easy targets. The police have all the evidence they need to arrest Hardy, but he hadn't been seen since the CCTV footage. Did he know the police would already be looking for him? The police know that they need to catch Hardy quickly and before he kills anyone else. On the 2nd of January, Hardy is spotted by an off-duty police officer. He reports the sighting and soon after, 2 police officers are on the scene. Hardy fights back against the police and it's nasty. One officer suffers a dislocated eye socket whilst the other is stabbed in the hand. Despite their injuries, officers hold down Hardy until backup arrives. They've finally captured the Camden Ripper. He is charged with the murders of Elizabeth Vallard, Bridget McLennan, and following re-investigation with the death of Sally White. Although Hardy refuses to cooperate with the police, at his trial he surprises everyone by pleading guilty on all 3 counts of murder. He is sentenced to life in prison. Police have always suspected that Hardy could have murdered other women. But the question is, how many more?